Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about singleness. So, this world has put like this stereotype around having to have somebody, having to be in a relationship, and like, oh, it's a popular thing. And yeah, being in a relationship is cool, being in a relationship is great. And if that's what you want to do, then that's great. But you don't have to be in a relationship right now. And why I say that is because even I, in my time of singleness right now, yeah, it's hard, but you want to wait on the right one. See, when you're walking in God's plan, then if you keep on praying for somebody to come along that God has for you, He'll bring him or her along. And for all you know, they could be praying for you right now. And sometimes the one you meet in the most interesting places will be a God thing, and it's so cool. And plus, when you date, you don't want to just date around. You want to date the person that's meant for you. It's okay to date a couple of people, see what you like and see what you don't like, and see if they're the one or not. That's totally fine. What I mean is like you don't want to have to go through like all these people and until you finally find the one. That's why waiting comes into play because God will bring the right one along in the right timing. And yeah, it's hard because it's like, oh, I want a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And you see all these couples and you're like, I want that. But also in a time of singleness, this is time to work on yourself, time to work on your relationship with God, and time to work on your life. Because when you're in a relationship, you're having to work on that relationship with each other, which is wonderful. It's great. It's an amazing process. It's beautiful. It allows you to learn what love is, which is awesome. But when you're single, it's also a great time to work on yourself because you want to make sure that you're your best self ready for the person that is meant for you. And also in time of singleness, you won't have many distractions. So, well, depends on your lifestyle. In the time of singleness, it's time to work on your relationship with the Lord. Because in order to have a good, lasting, God centered relationship, you have to make sure that you have God as your number one. And you have to make sure that your relationship with the Lord is strong in order for a relationship with a human to work. Because if you don't have a relationship with God, the chances of a relationship with a human is not that great for it to work out. And that's why we see so many people divorce these days because they don't keep God centered. Because when you have a God centered relationship, you'll be able to lead each other back to God. You'll be able to help each other through trying times and just experience your faith walk together, which is beautiful. But when you don't have that, there's a lot of stuff that can happen. And I think that's why like a lot of people get in arguments and stuff because they don't take it back to where it needs to go. They don't forgive each other, and then there's like a lot of other stuff that boils down and then divorce happens. But in a God-centered relationship with the right one, when arguments come along, yeah, you're gonna argue. That's normal. But you're also going to have patience and love and forgive and take it to God, and then you'll be able to sort it out. And that's why it's so important to have God centered relationship because that is how you know it's going to last. And also, you don't want to be unequally yoked with somebody. So, if you're going to date or marry somebody and you're a Christian, you want to make sure they're Christian as well. And I say this not to like judge people who are non-Christians, but I say this because you don't want to be unevenly yoked with somebody. See, if they're not Christian and you're Christian, they're going to do practices that are not necessarily okay and that are sinful. And since you're spending all this time with them, they're going to pull you down, especially because when you marry, you become one flesh. So being unequally yoked with somebody, especially when you're one flesh, is not good because they're going to drag you down and they're going to lead you away from God. So that's why it's important to definitely marry within the same faith. And also, when you marry within the same faith, it's so cool because then you can strongly together in your relationship with the Lord. And I just think that process is so beautiful. This world, it has so much pressure to have a relationship, but like, don't feel pressure to get a relationship. Just like keeping yourself, keep on waiting on the Lord's timing, keep on praying, and don't worry what the world thinks because the right one may come along next day, might come around next 10 years, etc. I don't know. I don't know the timing. I don't know who the Lord has for you. I don't know who the Lord has for me either. And we just got to trust in Him and know that He will bring the right one along because God created men and women to be together. And He wants us to have that relationship with each other if that's what we desire. Because not only do you have a partner to go through life with, but if you want to have kids, then that's also good because we are made to have kids if we want to have kids. And now, if you don't want that, that's totally fine. That's up to you. I'm not saying you have to have kids. That's not the whole reason why having a relationship. Some people want a relationship just for a best friend, which is totally fine. But I'm just saying for the people like me who want to be a wife and a mom, we also want to make sure we wait on the right one. Uh, God, a God fearing man, so that not only will he treat me correctly, but he'll also treat our kids correctly. Because I want to make sure that I raise my kids up in a home that fears God and that is loved and feels the love from their parents. And I want to make sure I take a guy as my husband that is going to be a good dad. So that's another one of my reasons. It's like I have like this checkbox, and also don't let the world think that your expectations are too high. Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, Abby, your expectations are too high." No, they're not. Like my expectations are basically you have to be a God fearing man. Um, I don't like any cussing. I don't like any drugs or smoking and stuff, drinking, getting drunk. I I want a guy who works hard, who's a good dad. And those standards aren't too high. Your standards are your standards for a reason. So don't let anybody try to drag you down because you're not going to settle for second best. Settling for second best is probably one of the worst things you could do because then you'll never be truly happy with your partner. And so that's why it's important to stick with what you want and stick with your standards because in the right timing, God will bring you along a person that you're going to love and that who's within those standards. If they are the standards that fall along with what God says about how a husband or wife should be, which is totally fine. And so that's why it's super important to wait again because it's like a waiting game, and the waiting game is hard. Trust me, I know because I find myself often desiring a boyfriend and wanting somebody that I can go hang out with, that I can talk to, and have that relationship with. But also, when we wait, it'll just make that relationship so much sweeter because that's the person that you've been waiting on. That's the person that you have been waiting for so long that you're gonna really, really, what's the word? Respect, appreciate. You're really gonna appreciate the relationship that you have because you've waited for it so long, and that's what you've desired for so long. And the Bible verse that I gotta think about when it comes to this stuff is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And see, whenever I'm waiting on something in my life, and whenever I want something, I have to keep this in mind because I know that God's plan is the best plan. And even though stuff doesn't happen in my timing, it happens in his timing. And I know that when it happens in his timing, it's going to be better than what it would have happened in my timing. See, when we wait on the Lord, stuff is better than we can imagine. That also applies for partners and stuff. If you wait on God's timing, then the right person will come along and they're going to be better than you could ever imagine. And it's going to be such a sweet relationship. And I just can't wait for that chapter of my life to happen. But until that happens, I'm going to have to trust in God and know that it will happen. Even if it'll be a week from now or 10 years from now, which is crazy to think. But, you never know. You never know when it's going to happen. You just got to keep on trusting on the Lord and trusting in the Lord's timing. That would be great. And that is what keeps me going when the whole world is like, oh, why don't you have a boyfriend? Oh, you need a boyfriend. No, I don't need a boyfriend. I don't need a relationship. What I need is to wait on God's timing to bring the right person along. That's what I need to do. And also in the waiting, it's such a beautiful time. It may not seem like it, but it's a beautiful time because you're, like I said, you're working in a relationship with God and you're working on other stuff in your life, but you're also practicing faith. And God is good to his good and faithful servant. So keep on practicing faith, keep on waiting on God to bring the right one along. And in his timing, he will bring the right one along. And just know that everything's going to work out for the good of those who love God. Because God is a good, good father. And he wants us to experience life with him. And he wants us to experience life in a good way with love, joy, peace, etc. So that's why it's very important not to feel rushed in a relationship and just wait on God's timing. God loves you and He will bring the right one along. Just trust in Him.